which we are now doing. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. First and foremost, I am absolutely blown away at y'all's participation, encouragement, kind words. I have no idea what I did to deserve them, but I will do the very best that I can to earn the respect each time we do one of these or any sort of product that I put out. I really want to help everybody get where they want to go. I've done a lot of different things that didn't work, things that did work, things that worked for a certain time in my life. And the answer isn't always so cut and dry. All right. So my goal is to give you the tools necessary to do what you need to do in the phase of life you're in and the phase of training you're in. Not everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, not everybody wants to be an endurance athlete, and you have all that stuff in between. And the way you get there is with a plan. So just a reminder, this is a nutrition 101 class. All right, so yes, there are significantly more details. It does go more in depth, but if we lay this foundation, I can continue to give classes and give you the information you need moving forward. Again, goes without saying, thank y'all so much, but let's get started. So this is Nutrition 101, the first class we are doing in the Reclaimed Fit Facebook group, a place where we're going to meet and push each other to be better, hold each other accountable, and just learn and grow together. So again, appreciate y'all. All right. So here's a brief overview. My goal is to go for about, 45 minutes. Anything over that will be based on the questions. So for those that are on Facebook, I have the chat pulled up to my left. For those of you on the actual Zoom live, you can throw them in the chat, or I don't have an issue. If you want to come on and say your question, by all means, go ahead and do so. But for those on Facebook, you could type them in. I can see the chat live. But here's our overview. We have fat, the basics, calories, how they impact fat loss. Weight loss does not equal fat loss. Macros, what their role is. How many calories do you need and ways to figure it out? Future class topics, and we're going to finish off with questions. All right. Again, the reason why I have the future class topics is because once I lay this foundation, we can go more in depth. Also, it'll be, I'll do polls or y'all could throw it in there. I have no issues finding out information for the topic. If I don't know, I'll find out and I'll get you somebody that can even do one of these. All right. All right. Disclaimer. I am not a doctor. If I was, I may not be doing this call right now. I'm just kidding. This is a passion of mine. I love to do it, but I do have to say that I am in fact not a doctor. Yes, I hold several certifications, but the way they break it up when it comes to fitness and nutrition, two totally different entities. And technically, the only ones that can give nutritional guidance are, in fact, nutritionists. So these are recommendations. This is not specific nutritional advice. I say again, I am not a doctor, nor am I a nutritionist. This is just simple guidance should you choose to follow it. Another disclaimer, not eating enough will make you fat. A lot of people just think that they can just not eat and lose weight. Yes, that is certainly possible, but the weight you're losing may not be the weight that you want to lose. You should, in fact, have cheat meals. Now, I have quotations around the cheat meals simply because um, I don't personally like calling them cheat meals. I wrote cheat meals here because most people understand what that means and they can identify with that. Um, but yes, you should have them. I'll cover it later on, but it serves a significant benefit as you deplete your calorie stores, and it certainly helps you reset and stay sane. All right. And finally, my last disclaimer, counting calories is absolutely necessary. However, if you do not know the amount of calories that you as an individual need, it is pointless. Simply because I cannot aim at something if I don't know what I'm aiming at. I cannot hit something if I don't know what I'm aiming at. All right. So, yes, okay, cool. You track your calories. But if they're more than what you need, you're going to gain weight. And if your goal is fat loss, it's pointless. All right. Looking for feedback? I wasn't gonna put my face on the screen because I thought that would have been weird. So that's why my face isn't up. If you want it up there, not that that makes it more or less weird, let me know. I'm just learning as I go, folks. All right, fat, the basics. So, you will not get fat by eating fat, okay? It is an energy source that is required for all living creatures of all shapes and sizes. Um, just it had really, really bad marketing, and basically it'd be the equivalent of trying to sell a makeup company, right? Let's say you had a makeup company, and you're like, "Hey, buy my makeup." Oh, what's it called? Ugly, right? You're less likely to buy it because it's got bad marketing, right? So fat is essential energy source for all required living beings. Fat is utilized by the body for many different functions, such as energy, building cells, and transporting nutrients. All right. So when it comes to that, all right, now some people are going to believe in high fat, low fat, right? We're not going to get into any of that at the moment. What we're going to cover is that it is absolutely necessary. So to transport fat soluble vitamins, to protect organs from injury, for your bones, to insulate the body, right? Leaner people tend to be cold more often simply because they don't have those fat stores. Not a positive or a negative, just maybe a possible downside as you realize that you're getting leaner. All right. And there are multiple types of fat, four to be specific, right? We have saturated fat. They have no double bonds between carbon atoms because of their structure. All right. Monosaturated fatty acids, they do contain a double bond. I know this sounds like jargon. Polysaturated fats, right? Those contain two or more double bonds, and are usually liquid at room temperature, and triglycerides. Okay, but I mean, regardless, all that saying when it comes to fat is contrary to what you've been told. You won't get fat from eating fatty foods. Fats found in food make up about 30 to 35% of overall energy produced from eating. All right, it could be more or less, but all depending on what you eat. Not only is it excellent source of energy, it also transports fat soluble nutrients, such things as vitamin A, D, and E. All right, basically, that is a bunch of complicated words to say it is absolutely necessary. If you want to be within that 30 to 35% of your total daily calories when it comes to fat, that's plenty good. If you're somebody that does keto, you're probably going to be way higher than that. All right. And if you're somebody that is moderate to low fat, 30 to 35% of your total daily calories is money. All right. It's where you want to be. All right. Moving on. Calories, how they impact fat loss. All right. So, I mean, everybody knows, all right, that if I have less than 500 calories a day, because 500 times 7 is 3,500 calories, right? So 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. Okay, cool. That's great. All right. Some more common knowledge that we may have is people with higher body fat percentages will lose more fat and retain more muscle with a significant calorie deficit, right? So if I have more fat to lose, I'm going to lose more fat. All right. So, you kind of got to meet yourself where you're at. If you have more fat, cool. I guess, because that's where you're at. You got to start somewhere. But that just means you're going to lose more. All right. If I'm training an athlete that is, 12%, he wants to get to 10, he or she wants to get to 10. Well, obviously for males, getting down to 10 is not an issue. For females, you're probably the lower end would want you to for a female athlete, it's probably safer to stay above, 16, 17%, simply because of the way it's laid out. But if you have more than that, if you're a male that has 24 or a female that has 35, right, you have in fact more fat to lose. And to be fair, it'll be easier, especially starting out. All right. And people with lower body fat percentages, it is harder for them to lose that fat. They actually hold on to it because the body is holding on to an energy resource that it has and it doesn't want to let go. So they're actually more likely to lose um, the muscle that they've built, because it's like, oh, well, it takes a lot to maintain muscle, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it, right? So it's something you definitely need to pay attention to when you are in a calorie deficit. And I didn't say this in the beginning. Yes, it is nutrition 101, but it's the beginning of the year. I'm not an idiot. Most people are probably saying they want to lose weight. So the emphasis on this class is weight loss / fat loss. All right. And you need to be creative, right? When you become more and more lean, you have to get significantly creative with the manner of which you decide to lose said fat. All right. The reason why I say that is because, like I said, your body's going to toss. It's going to toss the muscle out the door if you don't, strength train, if you don't manage your calorie deficit, if you don't take a diet break, something that we're not going to get into tonight. And then that's where those quote unquote cheat meals come in. All right. When it comes to measuring, right? You want to get into tracking your food, right? What gets measured gets improved. And when you do that, that's how you know, right? That's how you know you're hitting your goal, you're hitting your marker, and you're doing what you need to do, right? So if I have X amount of calories for the day, if I'm losing weight, I'm within my range of calories. By all means, I'm doing the right thing. And if I'm gaining weight, I'm not doing the right thing. Or if I'm losing too quickly, right, something's wrong. But again, what gets measured gets improved. So if I am in fact doing the things that are necessary by tracking my calories, which is something we could cover more in depth at a later time, that is going to allow me to know what needs to be shifted and in what direction. All right, weight loss does not equal fat loss. You may ask, what's the difference? Weight loss looks like overall body weight, including fat, muscle, bones, organs, and water. So you could do a DEXA scan. Those are cool, considered the most accurate means to find out what your body composition is. Bod pods for my military folk. I know a lot of you that are in the groups are near some type of military post, may still be active duty. You can do a bod pod once a month for free at your Army Wellness Center. It's clutch. Yes, at the end of the day, it's not absolutely perfect. But even if I were using a weight scale that was broken, if it's consistently broken and the weight goes down, I'm losing weight, right? So if I consistently use the bod pod and the conditions are relatively the same each time, it is a measurement that can be used. Please, please, please don't get caught up in perfect. All right. You want to make progress. And if you always want it to be perfect, it's not going to be. Spoiler alert. All right. So fat loss focuses on looking at how much your body carries. This part, excuse me, is critical to wrap your brain around, right? So you need to understand that your body may have its own set point when it comes to body fat, right? If you're in a weight loss journey, right, you have your current set point. Let's say I have a male athlete that started training with me at 20% body fat. That is where his body will naturally sit if he's been there for an extended period of time. If we get him down to 15, right? Let's say his goal is to lose, 5% body fat, whatever that equates to in in pounds, right? He goes from 200 pounds. Let's say he loses 5%. We do the math. Y'all can laugh at me in the comments, but I'm gonna just say he's down 20 pounds. All right. Excuse me, I overshot. We'll say 5 pounds of body fat, right? The scale may not show it may not equate on the scale. All right. So the reason being is because if you're an untrained athlete or what they call a newbie, let's say like newbie gains, you can actually lose fat and gain muscle, right? If you've been training for 10 plus years, it's significantly harder to do that. Maybe still be able to do it within 5 years. And this is assuming all things are equal, right? Like your training and nutrition's good, your hydration's good, your sleep is good, all these things, all these factors. All right. But if I get on the scale, right, and I'm still 200 pounds, but I look better in the mirror, that's a win. Take it. Take the dub. All right. But fat loss is not always going to equal pounds lost on a scale, right? Because if I'm losing that fat and I'm gaining muscle because I'm strength training, I'm eating right, sleeping well, I'm hydrated, right, so on and so forth. When I step on the scale, it may show the same weight, right? So I'm going to look for other means to measure that fat loss. All right. Other means may be calibers, right? So you want to look for quantitative data, right? Again, what gets measured gets improved. So if I'm measuring using calibers, right, you can get them for a couple bucks on Amazon, or if I'm using the bod pod at the military installation, right? You could use those scales nowadays, right? You put your when you weigh yourself, they'll tell you body fat percentage. Are those accurate? Obviously it's not the best, but I'm not necessarily going for the best, right? I want to know, okay, it once said 18% and it now says 17%. Boom, I lost 1% body fat. All right. Is it like I said, is it the best? No, but I'm not getting caught up in all that. All right. Another so we for quantitative we covered calibers. There's certain types of scales, bod pods, DEX scans, right? Another way to use to measure the progress, mirror. All right. Take pictures, right? So when I'm working with a client, what I do is we check in once a week, Saturdays or Sundays, pending their schedule, and they take pictures, front, front, back, left, and right. And then, because I'm not going to get into the way I coach, but when I'm working with an individual, all right, yes, scale weight is definitely a consideration, right? Weights moved in the gym is a consideration, but we're also looking for the visual, right? And more data, right? What gets measured gets improved. You're going to hear me say that a ton. So when I look, I'll be like, oh man, Kyle, like the weights, the scale's not moving. I'm like, cool. But don't trip. Like, don't worry about all that. Simply because, um, look at your shoulders, dude. Like your shoulders are rounder, right? They're broader, or they're more round, not rounder. But they're your back, your waist is trimmed. How's your clothes fitting? Your clothes fitting better? Things like that, right? So, I know it sounds crazy, and I even have it as a bullet point here, but if your goal is in fact fat loss, then you have to understand that there's many ways to measure it. All right, it's not just a scale. I recommend weighing yourself daily, right? So you wake up, use a restroom, weigh yourself daily. That way you have a consistent weight. When you get an average of by 7, it's significantly better than a sporadic average of 1 or 2 throughout the week, right? So I want a weekly average of your weight. Now, like I said, you wake up, use a restroom like every human does. And if you don't, it's a little strange. Get that checked out. But yeah, we have a 7-day average. That's your body weight, not your body weight that you were this morning. That is a part of it. All right. And the goal when it comes to weight loss is to actually lose fat. All right. When it's weight loss, fat loss, is your goal. I'll lump those two together. You want to hold on to as much muscle as possible. And if you're within that quote unquote untrained athlete space, you may in fact be able to replace that fat with muscle. It's pretty amazing to see. You're stoked, you look good, you feel good. All right. Um, but yeah, so just take progress pictures consistently. The data shows that an individual will see the progress within themselves anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. People around you are more likely to see it sooner, right? Because we see ourselves significantly throughout the day. You see yourself in the mirror, you see yourself in reflections and things like that. So like you're not going to notice these onesie twosies, but you will in fact notice pictures throughout time. Your spouse, significant other, your kids might even be like, "Oh, you're looking a little different." Unless you're going to Granny's house, then she's just going to call you skinny and try to plump you up on the holidays because that's definitely a thing. All right, moving on. And again, guys, like if you have any questions, the chat is open. The chat on Facebook, I can see it. The chat on Zoom, I can see it. If you have anything that you want to address before we move on and get in as we get more in depth, feel free to chime in. All right, so macros, what are the rules? All right. So there's 3 types of macros. All right. We have protein, carbs, and fats. Their roles in no particular order, right? I'm not saying one's better than the other, except for protein. Protein is the best. Protein is the best. Protein is the best. One more time for the people in the back. Protein. Hit your protein goal. If you live in the West or you're an American living somewhere else, you're probably not eating enough protein, right? So if we're crushing it in the gym, we got to rebuild, get your protein, get your protein. Please listen to coach, get your protein. All right, so carbs, what do? They supply glucose, energy, right? It's the most readily usable energy source in your body. It's the first thing your body's going to use, right? Think like a fuel can, right? If I pour out lighter fluid or something and I light it, boom, good to go. That's the carbs. Protein, it supplies amino acids. They are considered the building blocks of our skeletal muscle as well as an energy source, right? So if I run out of the glucose and I'm not fueled and I'm low on body fat, uh I will in fact burn the muscle that the protein has allowed my body to build, right? So for those of you, again, I know we got a military population, so I will try to relate it across the board to all people, but for my military folk, um uh for my military folk, if you let's say you didn't eat, breakfast or something, you got a long ruck march, like a 12-mile ruck march, or you're one of those crazy people that have done, 20-mile plus. If you start to smell like ammonia, right, that is a significant indicator that you are burning muscle, right? So no bueno. All right, we got so Gordon, he says, Kyle, how many calories do I need on a daily basis? Excellent question. I will politely ask you to wait towards the end. We will definitely cover it and I will answer your question. But excellent question. Appreciate you, brother. All right. So yeah, we have micronutrients. So you have macros, big, right? Micros. Those are that's when you come into like eating your greens and things like that. There's vitamins and minerals within your food. They are good for overall health. You tend to get those from your macros though. So if you eat a well-balanced diet, you're gonna get micros. There are deficiencies, right? So by all means, if you want to get tested, do it. There's a lot of different companies nowadays. You could do it for under $100, honestly, and find out what you're deficient in. Again, if you're in the West, you're probably deficient in like women tend to be iron deficient. And you can supplement with it if necessary. If you're not outside a lot, you're most likely going to be vitamin D3 deficient. Depending on how your diet is, you may be vitamin C deficient, things like that, right? So, you should be getting that all from your daily diet. But to go back, sorry, last one I didn't cover. The last one is fats. So, fats, they supply fatty acids crucial for the background function, all right, like hormone levels, joints, your brain, your immune system, and they are the slowest utilized source of energy. Right, so that's why endurance athletes, if you're familiar with endurance training, endurance athletes tend to have higher fat intake on their diets simply because they're doing long duration training sessions, and fat is going to slow burn. All right. So if that's your energy source and you want it for a long time, then definitely have a higher fat um, diet. All right. Moving on. This is going better than I expected, guys. I appreciate y'all. All right. So, how do we determine how many macronutrients you need to consume to determine your success? All right. So, you'll hear people say macros, like, or if it fits your macros. At the end of the day, right? So, if I have a certain amount that applies to me as an individual athlete, which I highly recommend, you use that language. All right. Conversation for another day, but like you are an athlete, you are training, right? Especially if you're active duty military, like your physical fitness is a significant part of your daily livelihood. All right. So you're an athlete, you train. Like, oh, I don't work. Like, I try to say, now I mess up and I'll say, oh, yeah, I work out. No, I train. All right. It's a different mindset. We're getting after it. All right. But so bottom line, if controlling the number of calories we consume, no matter what anyone has told you, right? It's the number one weight gain or weight loss determinant. All right. So if I need 2,000 calories to lose weight, right, and I'm eating over it, I'm not going to lose it. All right. So each macronutrient is going to have its own demand, and I'll cover it towards the end of the class, because you can actually decide if you know your total number of calories on something that we'll go over here in a few. You can decide, all right, I choose to have this much fat. I choose to have this much protein. I choose to have this much carbs. All right. Some people work. And then that's where it gets fun, right? When you have the tools, right? When you know how to fish, you can fish instead of just being told or just being handed a fish. Right. So you'll be like, oh man, like I don't like as men, I wouldn't recommend low fat for an extended period of time. There may be consequences that you won't appreciate when you need to, we'll call it perform. All right. Specify what percentages of your calorie intake comes from macronutrients. So be specific, right? So that comes with the plan, that comes with the measurement. All right, and controlling insulin levels. So this is important for everybody. All right, because you're hurting yourself if you're not understanding what you're eating, right? So when we were kids, right, a lot of us like we had cereal, right? And that's a high carb, high sugar meal, and that's all we had. You probably didn't have any protein. If you were lucky, you had maybe some bacon and eggs, which even that is depending on how much you have is higher fat than it is protein. But you had that your parents were slick. They shoved you full of carbs, right? High carb, high sugar, and then sent you off to the teacher so she can complain about your behavior. All right. And then they're wondering why you're bugging out in class. Well, I had 60 grams of sugar and 80 grams of carbs, and you wanted me to be calm? Not gonna happen, fam. But as an adult, right, you may understand that like maybe I don't want to spike my insulin. Maybe I don't want to have a high carb meal first thing in the morning. Now, again, how you do it, conversation for another day, because there are in fact carbs that digest quicker, and there are carbs that digest slower, right? So it won't have as a significant as a spike in the insulin levels, right? So as your education grows, as we have these classes and you become more knowledgeable, you can understand, okay, like I can't eat these things because, as you get older, like shoot, I'm 33. I'm trying to avoid that crash that happens around noon to 1. All right. My check engine light comes on if I don't eat the right things. And I'll be like, man, why am I so tired? It's like, oh, I had a bunch of I spiked my insulin and then it crashed. All right. That's for you old folk and on the Zoom, myself included. All right, how many calories do I need? That was a question proposed in the chat. We got you. All right. So the amount of calories each person needs in order to maximize fat loss and maintain overall health is highly variable based on several factors. All right. Those factors are going to be simple things, right? Age, height, weight, activity level, things like that. Right. So first, you need to determine your BMR, right? What is your basal metabolic rate? This is the number of calories you burn just by simply being alive. If you sat there and you did absolutely nothing, that's the total number of calories you burn. Yes, believe it or not, you're always burning calories. All right. So even if you're overweight, even if you're untrained, even if you don't work out, your body is consistently burning calories. How amazing. Look at that. Good for you. That's so cool. No sarcasm in my voice at all. All right. But you can and you can get this number. Just go on Google. You just type in BMR, bodybuilding.com will pop up or whoever pops up first. Check one or two different calculators that they have, compare them because they're going to be all reasonably close. And at the end of the day, it's still like an equation that calculates it. Again, shout out to the active duty individuals that are on the call. Appreciate y'all. Go to the wellness center, get this tested. You will sit there. It's all free. You can schedule it out. You sit there, they lay this handy dandy mask over your face. You lay there, you do absolutely nothing. I believe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and they'll give you your specific BMR. Right now, granted, the one you Google is going to be super close for those of you that don't have that resource. The one you Google, it'll be very, very close. And then you'll know, okay, so if I did absolutely nothing, that's how many calories I burn each day. All right. So now that we have your BMR, we have to account for all of the activity you do, or what I tell people, the activity you don't do, because we tend to think we do way more than we actually do. All right. So now that I have what I burn if I do absolutely nothing, we're looking for what's called TDEE. All right. So that is your total daily energy expenditure. Now that I know what I burn if I do nothing, I have to now calculate what I burn when I do stuff. All right. So this magical number will be based on these next things. So you take your BMR, you take your TDE. Again, you can Google TDEE calculator. I will throw some recommendations in the Facebook group or even in the chat here if needed. But go ahead. Oh, excuse me. My bad. I did not mean to do that. All right. And we're back. But you take that, right? And what it all is going to do is going to take your age, your height, your weight, your activity level. Be realistic. Typically, the calculators will rate them 1 through 5. All right. And since fat loss is your goal in this case, you need that TDEE number. All right. So you don't need to worry about your BMR necessarily. It's just good to know. But essentially, sorry, got see the question in the chat. And so yes, my goal is to have this put up on the Facebook group if you're a member of it, and if not, I am actually recording it at my computer currently, and I'll upload it to my YouTube channel. We're doing all the things. All right, so TDE, right? So BMR is if you did absolutely nothing. That's the amount of calories I burn. All right, TDEE is the number that is really the important number here, right? BMR is good to know. It adjusts as you get older, right? So if you haven't noticed, again, you old folk, if you started slowing down in your weight loss journey, all right, it's because you got older, right? And your BMR changes. Your TDEE, however, there is an effect on that based on age, obviously. But if I'm more active, right, I'm going to burn more calories, right? So like if I work at a desk and I don't move much throughout the day, I only train 2 to 3 times a week, my TDE is going to be lower. If I'm a construction worker and I'm out there grinding for 12 hours a day moving concrete, I'm probably going to have a higher number. All right. So you take that number. All right. Now that we know what our TDEE number is, and like I said, just Google it. Plenty of good calculators out there. I decided against putting the calculation up here, because I don't want to be doing math in public. But by all means, just Google TDEE. You'll find an excellent calculator. All right. Okay, you have your TDE. You must create a caloric deficit. to set the stage for fat loss. This intentional shortage of calories combined, with exercise and proper supplementation will allow your body to lose unwanted fat. Again, what gets measured improves. All right, that thing will improve if you measure it. So let's say my TDEE number, all right, is in fact 2,500 calories. Okay. The next bullet you have here, right? An easy way to decide what your caloric deficit is going to be, right? So we want loss, fat loss, weight loss. You're going to take a certain amount of number off of it, right? So if I have 2,500, I will start with a caloric deficit of 300 calories. All right. So this will be a good starting point for your fat loss journey. Okay. Some people do 250. If you're on a shorter timeline, let's say you're trying to get ready for something, you can feel free to increase that. Obviously, it's going to have its ramifications down the road, but if you're trying to get ready for something, in 6 weeks, right? You don't have 12 weeks to train and lose weight. So that number three, that 300 might actually be 500. It might be 600. The higher it goes, obviously, the harder it will be and the less sustainable it will be. But this is why we're laying the foundation now, because there's ways around all of that, right? I've worked with athletes that, whether it's an ACFT that they're training for within, 8 weeks, whether somebody has a wedding or an event or summer's around the corner, and they come to me last minute. Hey, Kyle, I have 4 weeks. How do I lose 10 pounds? Well, we could do it. You ain't gonna feel good though. All right. But ideally, you want to make it sustainable. All right. Basically, you ask yourself this question as you're developing, as you're learning these things and developing these processes, you go, do I see myself doing this in 6 months? If the answer is no, well, maybe 6 months is too long. Let's say I'm doing like a 16-week weight loss training block. 16 weeks, 4 months. I'm like, all right, can I sustain this for 4 months? If the answer is no, maybe that 500 that you put as your deficit should be dropped down to 300. Fat loss that is sustainable is long lasting, right? The data is insane. It's like roughly, and don't quote me here, it's roughly 80% of people that lose weight put it back on. And that may be you. I know for a fact that's been me. And the way I've found it sustainable, is if I make it realistic with a decent amount of time, right? The duration of that period that I decide to lose weight is realistic. Now, like I said, sometimes you might just be hurting. It is what it is. You got a short timeline. You got to make it right. All right. And you already folk know what it is. Prior to the whole 540 thing, height and weight was murdering people. All right. So, last thing I'm going to cover right here. We're a little early on time, so that's cool. Future class topics. How much does exercise influence fat loss? Sadly, it is not as much as you think it is. All right. Diet breaks and fat loss. I see the question in the chat. Diet breaks and fat loss. So diet breaks is that's not a new idea. Depending on your TikTok and your social media influence, people are gonna act like they're brand new. But diet breaks are absolutely necessary. I said it in the very, very, very beginning. Diet breaks are absolutely necessary when it comes to fat loss. All right. Reason being is because it kind of is like a nice reset button for your body. All right. It kind of like resets it and it lets it feel good for a second. It helps your sanity, right? As you continue to do this thing we call fat loss. All right. So diet breaks are absolutely necessary and definitely should be implemented. There's some tips and tricks to keep in there while you're doing it. Fat loss and friends. All right. So how do I lose weight and still be social? Right. That is a big, big question I get often. As you can see right here, I see don't be a weirdo. All right. Short story. My wonderful wife, who I love very much, I decided to I decided on one date I try to get sushi without the rice. It's definitely a thing people do. The server looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. My wife looked at me like I was absolutely crazy because I was absolutely crazy. So don't be a weirdo. There's still a way to do this and lose weight. All right, and then supplementation for fat loss. Um, Now, this one gets tricky because everybody under the sun is going to try and sell you stuff. All right. So yes, there are, in fact, supplements that can aid you in fat loss. Again, they're probably not going to be as amazing as you would think they are. And if you ask the marketers that are selling whatever it is that they're trying to sell you, oh, it's amazing. It's the best thing ever. It'll lose all the fat. Um, they're mostly lying to you. But there are some things that you can do that help you kind of just like like I said, it's if all things are maximized, right? If we have if we're hitting our macros, if we're sleeping well, if we're hydrated, we're training, we're crushing it, we're sustaining it, we're doing it over a long period of time, by all means, um, yes, I can in fact recommend some things that can aid you and just push you over the edge. All right, at this time, I am complete. I said we were going to go for about 45 minutes. Got you at 38. Look at that. Ahead of schedule. So I will open it up for questions at this time. If you have any, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to look at the chat to make sure I can see any that were previously here. So yes, I answered this earlier, I believe, but yes, I'll have it downloaded, or excuse me, I'll have it uploaded on the Facebook group. Ideally, that stream will stay there. And if not, then my YouTube channel will have this stream. And then the second question was, do you recommend always having a time frame on weight loss goals? So actually, I would go as far as to say I would have a timeline for any goal, right? You want to make the goal as specific as possible, and that's why I really really wanted to take an opportunity to do this, because one, it's not as difficult as people make it seem. Most people are trying to sell you something. Most people are trying to say, hey, I should do this or do that. Yes, we're humans, we have opinions and such, but there are just like bottom line. These are the things that are absolutely necessary, and if you feel like doing more or less, it'll just shift how often, um, or excuse me, how soon or later you reach that goal. Um, Now, when I say having a time frame on any goal, right, specifically weight loss, yes, 1000%. Because the thing is like you can't. Can you lose weight for 6 months? You certainly could try. Um, I wouldn't recommend it simply because every time you're losing weight, that natural set point that I covered previously, on one of the other slides, it's going to change, right? So if I sat once upon a time at 20% body fat and I'm now at, let's say 17, well, I might have to redo my BMR. I might have to or I definitely need to redo my TDEE, right? If I've went from 20 to 17%, or let's say I went from 200 pounds to 190 pounds, I absolutely, absolutely need to redo my TDE because my age is the same, or unless, of course, I got older. My height is the same, unless, of course, all that rucking made me shorter, but um, the my body weight, that set point has now shifted, right? So I was 200, I now am 190. If I've been there for a few weeks, I now need to redo the calculation, and my calories may in fact change. I may need a diet break, right? So what I recommend, like I said, with any goal, but specifically when it comes to weight loss, you do blocks, right? Training, you could do it a training block, you could do a specific date on the calendar, right? Because what you don't want to do is if you take and take and take, it's going to be harder to lose weight, right? Over time, if I'm losing weight for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, your body just isn't going to have it, right? You might actually lose muscle. You might actually start getting sick. So yeah, so definitely my recommendation is, you could do a mini cut, 6 weeks. Those are very common. Those are very popular. It's called a mini cut, 6 weeks. You could do a training block. I like 12-week training blocks. If you have more time, great. 16 is awesome. Once you get to 20 weeks, it's difficult to do it for that amount of time. And then I don't recommend training blocks any less than 8 weeks. All right. So I kind of like pairing whatever it is that I'm trying to do with my nutrition. So if I'm trying to have fat loss, I pair my training in the gym with fat loss, right? Because I want to maximize. I'm in a position where I'm not necessarily going to put on muscle, but I'm definitely going to try to hold on to as much of it as possible. So yes, 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 1,000 times yes. Set a time frame for your weight loss goal. All right. Any recommendations for getting through the afternoon crash? Yes. So I don't know your specific situation, but I'm going to assume that you do a lot of things. Um, I'm going to say a lot of things are taken into account, right? So ideally, you're at that 8 hours of sleep. Most people aren't. Cool. Next, are you consuming caffeine early in the morning? All right. So my recommendation would be if you just put it off, don't wake up and grab that cup of coffee. Don't wake up and drink that monster. Try to go as long as you can. But if you're gonna do it soon, all right. Um, if you're gonna do it sooner, right? I would say no less, absolute, or excuse me, no sooner than 60 minutes. 90 minutes is a sweet spot. The data shows 90 minutes is great. So like I'll wake up, I'll do what I got to do, and I try to make it to about that 90-minute mark before I have caffeine, and that'll help prolong the afternoon crash. Second thing I'm gonna do, you can strategically use caffeine, right? So maybe I don't have any caffeine in the morning, or I have that caffeine in the morning. Boom. I have caffeine like early afternoon, no later than 4 p.m. ish. I like personally between 2 and 12. But also somebody here in the Facebook chat is also saying, having a snack. So I like, fruit is really good. It's kind of that quick energy, right? Quick digesting carb that we said earlier. It'll definitely help give that spark, right? Your metabolism, think of it as a fire. We want to consistently throw fuel on the fire, right? That's why the old adage of like, bodybuilders eat 5 to 6 meals a day. Really, they're just trying to keep that metabolism going. You don't have to do that many meals in a day, but if you have that crash, reach for that fruit, some strawberries. I love green apples. They're the only apples that should exist. But yeah, look for those items that can help you um, keep your energy stores full. All right, what's your take on post workout products that may increase weight versus losing? Ooh, excellent question. Ooh, man, this is why I wanted to do this, man. I might have to turn on my camera. This is what now we're in my bag. All right. So, when it comes to man, this is a whole class in itself with Gordon. All right. So pre-workout. Uh I'd be a hypocrite if I told you don't take it, right? Um, and I'm gonna say this, and I'll tell you why. Because I have it. I have pre-workout. Caffeine, at the end of the day, if you really wanted to keep it simple, just take caffeine tablets, right? It's caffeine's energy. But they're branded, they're sold, they're cool. They do work, right? So I like pump products. Those are caffeine-free pre-workouts simply because it increases the blood flow. But if I'm strength training, I don't need increased blood flow, right? But if I'm doing hypertrophy training, my emphasis is to grow the muscle. That increased blood flow certainly does help. Post workout, now if you're trying to do like a mass gainer, that's just a ton of calories, right? So I would say I don't recommend, definitely don't recommend. It is to me, in my opinion, it is a waste of money simply because they're just high calorie drinks with a lot of garbage in it. Um, but pay attention to when you take, whether it's pre-workout, whether it's even protein. If you're going to the restroom within 30 minutes, your body's telling you something. It could be talking to you about the quality. It could be talking to you about maybe if it's a whey protein, you may not be, uh, like you may have a dairy effect in your gut, right? Um, but yeah, so you have to be careful with those things. Um, Oh yeah, yeah. So he says hot water and a pinch of salt help blood flow, increase in pump and hypertrophy. Absolutely. I actually take salt tablets before my workouts, to get some juicy pumps. But yeah, so pre-workout, yeah, find a brand that you like if you want to take one. Like you can literally get like 100 tablets of caffeine on like Amazon for like $7. Boom, that's pre-workout. You can have a cup of coffee. Boom, that's pre-workout. Do you need it? Not necessarily. Do I say don't buy it? Like I said, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. I literally have some within arm's reach if I can grab it. So I definitely take it because at the end of the day, like after you might just be tired. It might be mid-afternoon and you got some heavy deadlifts. You just might need some of that push. All right. Now the weight gaining products, like that, those just tend to be shakes filled with a lot of calories, i.e. junk. And you're better off eating, right? So I like to eat roughly 80% of my calories from whole foods. All right. That's a good marker, right? I call it the 80/20 rule. It's called the 80/20 rule. And that whether I'm losing, whether I'm gaining, that is a good marker, right? Because I need to replenish the stores if I just beat myself up in the gym. Even if I'm trying to lose weight, I still have a post-workout meal. It could be a protein shake, it could be a post-workout meal. But yeah, definitely um monitor the products, right? Pre-workouts by all means, if that's you, go ahead and do it. Post-workouts. Um, if you like post-workouts, I would say in the sense of like cluster dextrin, and I'll go ahead and move on from this question. I'm on a soapbox here. Cluster dextrin is a quick digesting carb that will help replenish stores. You may want to eat those calories if you're in a caloric deficit. If you have calories to spare and you're trying to gain weight, then by all means, if you have the means and the money, don't go breaking the bank. You absolutely don't need anything in GNC. All right. and like I said, Gordon, that may in fact be its own class, all right? Like, all right, so I'm gaining weight versus losing, but I've noticed that I'm also gaining muscle. I guess I'm looking for a balance to lose weight while gaining muscle. Yes, so absolutely, right? So that that is the holy grail. How do I gain muscle without gaining fat? One of the ways you do so there's I would encourage you to look up what's called main gaining. What that is a slight caloric increase, right, over a duration of time, right? So main gaining, you would find your maintenance calories, right? And you would go slightly above that and increase it over time when necessary. And you would have a slight increase, slight increase, slight increase. That will help you uh keep off that body fat that you're definitely going to gain. The issue is, right, so like when you gain weight, you will gain fat. That's something people don't like to tell you. Um, but I'm gonna keep it a buck, right? So if you gain weight, you absolutely will gain fat. The question is how much? What am I doing to keep that fat from coming onto my jumping onto my body? All right. Um, but absolutely, right? So like can I find my maintenance calories, go slightly above it, right? And gain more muscle, right? So that's where the training is really important. I would question, how what's your training looking like? Obviously there's a lot of factors here that I don't know. But if you're gaining too much body fat, that's where the calibers come in. That's where the pictures come in. That's where the scale comes in. If you're gaining too much body fat, right? Go to the bod pod, right? What is the bod pod saying? If you're gaining too much body fat, then I would recommend slowing down the gaining process. All right, and then there was a good comment in the Facebook group. I'm gonna read it. It says, well, I appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying the class so far. It says testosterone and metabolism are higher when body fat is in the 10 to 18% range, if I'm not mistaken. So you're not mistaken, right? As if you have a higher so for men, sub 20% is a good place to be, whatever that looks like for you, right? So unless you have a reason to be below 10%, i.e., training for something specific, right? I don't necessarily recommend it. It definitely can damage your body long-term health. Right. But having that sweet spot, right? So and then your body's gonna change too, right? So yeah, 18% is definitely good, right? If you're trying to bulk, I'd try to keep it between 16 and 18. That just might be a personal preference for you that you might like, right? Like I know people I've had clients that they're like, oh, I want to gain weight, but I don't want to lose my abs. I was like, all right, well, this is gonna take longer. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, for every bit of um if you every bit of body fat you put on, remember at some point it's gonna have to come off. So if I put on too much body fat, it's gonna be a pain to get off. All right. But yes, 10 to 18%. Oh, you're welcome, Gordon. 10 to 18% is definitely good. That sweet spot, really, that 14 to 15% is money. You can main gain. But that's why I want to do these classes, guys. Like the main gaining is a tactic. Body recomposition is a tactic. That's where you stay the same body weight. Like if you like the body weight you're at and you want to do a body recomp, meaning you want to eat and train in a manner of which you can actually shift some of that body fat into muscle. And like if I want to stay 190 pounds, but I want to look better, I will put a client into what I call what is called, excuse me, not just me. It's called a body recomp. All right. You do a recomposition of what your body has, and you'll look better at your current body weight if that is in fact the body weight that you're trying to sit at. All right. Any final questions? I'm gonna leave it open before oh, go back. Any final questions? Any final questions? There's a slight delay in the Facebook group, so I'm gonna give them a second. If you're here in the chat, throw it in there. I will answer it to the best of my ability. All right. That was enough of a pause. Didn't want it to be awkward for everybody. Again, remember, I'm not a doctor. All right. Not eating enough food will make you fat. Stop starving yourself, people. Eat food. All right. Definitely have a quote unquote cheat meals. If you were here for the duration of the class, you know what I said about it. We'll go cheat meals, fine. Counting calories is necessary, but it's pointless if you don't know the amount you need. All right. And a brief recap, going over it again. We talked about the basics of fat. It's necessary. Stop worrying about the name. Calories, how they impact fat loss. If you need to know the amount of calories you have, all right. Weight loss is not the same as fat loss. Pay attention when that scale weight changes. Pay attention, because it may not be what you want. All right. Macros, what are they? What their role is? How many calories do I need? We discussed, right? The TDEE. Google it, but that's a calculator for you. All right. We talked about future class topics, and I think even some of these questions gave me a lot of good ideas. Feel free to throw them in the Facebook group. Let me know. I have zero issues. I love this stuff. I want y'all to get to where you want to go, and I would love to be a part of the journey. I would be honored. And we finished up with the questions answered. So, all right, y'all. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second, and I'm gonna show my ugly mug because I just want to say thank you 1,000 times. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Yes, I still have my Christmas tree. Ooh, that's funny. Hey, love it. That's why we're doing these. So, from the bottom of my heart, it means the absolute world to me that you would trust me with this opportunity to give you these classes, answer your questions, and provide some type of value. All right. We pretty much made it off without a hitch until my computer decided to do its own thing. But I appreciate your time. It's the one resource you'll never get back. And you gave me some of your time, whether you're watching this now or whether you're watching this later. Um, Questions, throw the questions. You're not a bother. I will do the absolute best that I can. And there's 155 people in that group. They can also help direct you. All right. And if somebody's doing some wild stuff, we'll correct in the comments, police each other up. All right. Yes, I did have pants on. But again, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you. It is an absolute honor that you trust me enough to give you this information. And, hey man, I'm happy for you. Get after your goals, keep each other accountable. And if you follow me on any social media, you know what I say. Aim higher. That's all I got for y'all. Appreciate y'all. Have a good night. Catch the game. I don't know who you're going for, but whoever it is, hopefully they win. And if not, you'll be all right. I'll catch y'all later.